We are pleased to have with us our moderator. He is an esteemed journalist and author. Earlier this year in June, he became the chief television critic for Rolling Stone. Among the books that he's written are The Revolution Was Televised, All Due Respect, The Sopranos Changes Everything in TV, Breaking Bad 101, and his next book coming out in January is The Sopranos Sessions. We're honored to have with us today. Please welcome Alan Sepinwall.
So how was that? All right, it is my great pleasure to introduce our panelists. First up, creator, executive producer, writer, Jemaine Clement. Next up, executive producer and writer, Mr. Paul Sims. And finally, creator, executive producer, and director, Taika Waititi. Thanks, sir. All right.
Good to be hydrated.
So, Jemaine and Taika, you've known each other for a long time. Was there ever a period where you actually cohabitated?
Really briefly.
I cohabitated with Taika's ex-girlfriend, so sort of, he'd be around a lot.
Yeah, I had my own place that I never went to. Because I had a girlfriend.
Do you feel like being roommates might have changed the friendship at all, ruined it in some way?
I just wanted to be closer to Jemaine, so I got that girlfriend. Decided to go out with her so I could go over and hang out with them.
That's before I was flatmates with your girlfriend too, wasn't it? So it took a lot of planning.
Yeah. Got together with her, made sure you guys got flat together.
Looking for a flatmate, but you didn't want to actually officially live together with her.
Oh, I don't like anything to be official.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been talking about the idea of taking the movie and doing a show out of it? This show specifically.
Well, it even goes back further than that. Go to the very genesis of the Shadows show.
Okay. We played some vampire characters twice. Once was in a stand-up night. Yeah. Where I think the sketch was something like, one of us got up and started telling vampire jokes. Who was that? Was that me or you? I can't remember. We only did it once.
I don't remember.
One of us was telling vampire jokes. I think it was me. It was like, I flew in from Pennsylvania, boy are my arms tired, and stuff like that. And then
classic joke still works.
Then Taika, Taika as a vampire gets up and starts heckling me. And I'm like, you, my old vampire rival, every gig I've done for 200 years, you come and you heckle me. And then we have a big argument. And then, this is like 15 years ago or something like that, and I saw a very serious vampire movie, and then I wanted to, I thought we should make those, and Johnny Bruff, who's in the movie, who's Deacon in the movie, we thought, let's ask him. He was in a comedy duo that we really liked, and Taika had the idea to make it into a documentary, and we went back and forth on that, because at the time, there was some mockumentary stuff, but then the office came.
Now there's too many mockumentaries.
It took us so long to do it. What's that?
Now there are too many mockumentaries.
It's a lot. And so we made this short film for about $200. It's on YouTube. Someone stuck it on YouTube. Have a look. It's all right. It looks like it's $200. And then this version. I don't know if we had thought about it, but I was keen on doing more writing projects, taking it, doing less acting and doing more writing, and Scott Rudin saw the movie and asked us to develop a series idea, a pilot. So it seemed like a good opportunity for me, because it means I wouldn't have to pitch it. It would already, already be approved. And when I was writing it, Paul Sims and I worked on Flight of the Conchords, or actually all three of us worked in different capacities. And Paul's someone I always send things I write to. He's someone I really respect. He's worked on lots of great shows, all different genres, and each one has its own personality. He helps people shape their shows, and he came aboard on this.
It's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Yeah,
Go on.
I won't say it again.
Beyond, obviously, the mockumentary look of it, are there certain vampire films from the past that the two of you looked at and said, like, we want this to resemble this in some way, either like the way the vampires move? Because one of the things I love about both the movie and this pilot we just saw is it's very funny, but it's also, the vampires do seem genuinely dangerous, and it can be really scary at times. So what were you looking for in terms of influence?
Well, you're right, vampires can be scary. I'm not sure if, I was more influenced, I think we watched like, This Is Spinal Tap, and like a lot of films like that as like just sort of inspiration for mockumentaries.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
So it's like Spinal Tap and
Yeah,
Stoker's
yeah.
Dracula.
But then there are little things that we wanted to put in that just from films that we grew up loving, like, like, how you enjoying your maggots, Michael? From Lost Boys, like we had that
there
little
is
thing. So we
there's
just
so
basically
many films.
steal from a lot of things that we liked and put them in our movie and then take credit for it.
There's a very early mockumentary from New Zealand in the 70s called Fred Dag. This is an actual TV show where they just follow a farmer for half an hour. That's a TV show that still runs in New Zealand. It's run for about 40 years, but they let this comedian do a pretend one, and that's a classic mockumentary as far as I'm concerned. But other vampire movies, Naja, that character is named after a nice, moody vampire movie.
Interview of the Vampire, of course.
Salem's Lot.
Did you ever have any discussions in terms of the documentary crew of, can vampires show up on film? Because obviously they have to for this.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, and these cameras, with obviously the digital cameras, so there's no mirrors.
Yeah, so I think you'd find in some early model cameras, you'd have a mirror in the viewfinder. So when vampires are getting portraits, often the photographer would go, "Wait a minute, you're not showing up," and the vampire just says, "Trust me, it'll show up." No, I don't know. There's no mirrors involved in those cameras, right, that we used. Make sure there's no mirrors in it.
No.
Yeah.
We had to test a lot of gear. We did want to shoot on film, but that was proved to be almost impossible. So we did those tests, and then we decided we'll go with a format that people will be able to use today.
Yeah,
in the 2000s.
Otherwise, you just hear them.
Yeah, that's probably not
be a podcast.
good show.
No.
Where did the idea for Colin Robinson Energy Vampire come from?
I think we all know a person like that.
Yeah. Oh no, Colin Robinson.
Yeah, and when we hadn't thought of anything like that for the movie, but when I was like reading about different kinds of vampires, that was one that people mentioned as a real type of vampire that exists and that we all come up against. And then, I could think of conversations I've had where I've been trapped by someone, and perhaps people have felt like that with me there. I don't know. But everyone who watches it says, we have someone in our office that's like that.
Now, you mentioned Nadia before. In the movie, it's 3 guys sharing a house, 4 guys. But in this case, you have a female roommate among them. How does that change the dynamic?
In the movie, so the short film that we made for $200 that you can see on YouTube, it's not very good. No, it's okay. I mean, it's $200. For the movie, for that short film, the original, we just asked all our friends who were comedians and actors to turn up.
We didn't know any girls.
That's not true. We asked girls as well, but they didn't show up. So
we asked our mums, and they didn't want to.
They weren't interested. My mum actually
jobs.
did play a part in the movie, but we cut it out. She played Nick's mum. She was good, actually. She was good. It's just we had so much footage. So when we made the short film, with the exception of Jackie, who's the familiar in the film, we asked her to turn up. She didn't turn up either, but we still wrote her a part. But no, otherwise we just wrote the film for the people who turned up to the original short film we'd made 10 years earlier.
Why Staten Island?
I think it was because we wanted the idea that the vampires had been, maybe 200 years ago, had been sent to maybe conquer America, but had sort of lost their way and forgotten, and they'd gotten to New York, and that's where the boat dropped them off, and they never went any further, and before they knew it, a lot of time had passed.
We discussed a lot of different cities.
L.A.
LA can't be LA, too sunny. Detroit.
Detroit came up for some
But
reason.
that had been in other vampire stories, like Jim Jarmusch's film.
Now, I looked this up beforehand. It is 8,933 miles from Wellington to Staten Island. So that would be a really long haul for your characters from the movie to make it over. Is there any chance that that might happen at some point?
Only if something really disastrous happens. Has to be of incredible import.
I mean, but is it something you've talked about? I mean, Taika, you said yesterday that this show...
I didn't say, did I say, what did I say? I didn't say anything, guys. What did I say?
But this show, the movie, and Wellington Paranormal, they're all kind of in the same universe, right?
Yeah, we're creating a universe to rival that of Marvel and DC. It's just, yeah. What we're doing is we're taking one idea and stretching it out over years and years.
That's what they do too.
That's what yeah. It's just different costumes with them.
Paul, when you sat down with the guys to start turning this into a show, like, what did you feel you needed to do in order to make it work beyond the conceit of the original film?
Nothing really. I mean, the original film was so funny. I mean, my one initially, when Jemaine said they're going to do a TV version of it, I thought, oh, that's great because I love you and Taika in the movie. And he said, yeah, well, we're not going to be in it. And I said, well, okay. But then the cast we found, I think, is so great. Matt Berry, I've loved in so many things, and Kayvon and Natasha are great, and Mark Proch, for anyone who watches Tim and Eric or On Cinema at the Cinema, is such a funny person. I think it's just an incredibly funny cast.
And on one thing is, it's easier for Taika and I to see how it's going, because when we're in it, we can't actually see it, and it's months before we see how it turned out.
Yeah, a lot of the times on the film, it's very frustrating because, well, A, would be dressed in these ridiculous outfits.
No one takes you serious.
None of the crew would take you seriously. You'd be like trying to order people around.
When you're wearing a ruff.
Teeth and a ruff, yeah, and a lot of the time also like hanging halfway off the ground by wires, and trying to turn around and tell people, I want to see, does this look cool? Does this, as long as it looks cool. So then you never find out until the edit that it doesn't look cool. And
so furious. No one told me. Everyone said I looked cool.
It's cool.
Well, I mean, in the opening credits, we see some of those photos of them over the years, and occasionally it seems like they're making attempts to fit in with society, but then they go back to this, this old world.
The credits here is, it's actually temporary. It's just, It was just to get the green light, but some of it might stay.
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, how much, if at all, have they attempted over the years to try to fit into modern society?
You'll have to watch the rest of the. No.
So
You'll have to ask them.
This is something that we still debate as we're getting ready to shoot the first episodes. They know what modern society is, but Jemaine compares it to, like.
I think of it like someone, your parents who don't know how to operate any electronics, like them trying to use Skype or something like that. They know about it, but they can't use it. They need guidance, but for them it's happened centuries ago.
Now, I imagine, having characters who can use hypnosis solves a lot of story problems.
Yep.
Although, no, we did have a debate during the pilot about not wanting to overuse that and make it like Men in Black, where any kind of chaos could happen, and they could just go, no, that never happened. But we still overused it. But we're going to stop doing that.
There's some fun. We've had some fun with it in the scripts. We're writing away at the moment.
Now, Guillermo is the first character we meet. He's the last face we see at the end of the pilot. He is, as he says, he's not a murderer, but he helps find people to be murdered, and yet he's also so sweet and innocent in a way. How do you sort of figure out how to walk that line, and I guess?
Oh, well, you know, when I was writing the pilot, I was thinking that they're all murderers, so we need someone to balance that.
Like an assistant murderer. So
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But he'll have to wrestle, of course, with that idea that when he becomes a vampire, if he does, he'll have to do those things too.
But getting back to the idea before about them, it being both funny and scary, do you have a sense of a line of how many people they can murder in a given episode, in a given season, before it maybe becomes too dark, or it's a vampire show and that's...
it's sort of, I think we figured it out as we've gone along. There was a part in this that we took, remember when Guillermo's showing the virgins around the house, we open the door to where all the victims are being kept. That was originally, and in the script we thought very funny that they had the dates when they'd been drunk written on their foreheads. And then when we cut it together, it looked so grim and gruesome.
Yeah, it's very disturbing. That kind of thing about, you know, making rules on your episodes, I think that comes later, like when you've done some and you go, okay, I think we went too far that time, and there were not enough.
So we're going to start taking questions in a couple of minutes if you guys want to line up.
Not too many.
Oh, thanks for coming, by the way. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Being a great audience.
All right. You know what? There's such enthusiasm. If you guys want to go now, go for it. So why don't we start over there?
All right, hi. I'm very curious. I lived in Wellington for a while, and there's so much in the original movie that's so very Wellington, like going out into Taranaki Street and ending up in a sad club. Are we going to see anything like that that's very typical New York? And where do you get inspiration when it's going to be like something that very New York?
In one of the episodes that we're just starting we're going to shoot next week, they venture.
Next week?
Oh no! It's late. It feels like it's going to be next week.
Good.
They venture into Manhattan for the first time. They've been, they've assumed that Staten Island is all of New York or maybe even all of America for years and years. But there's a scene when they go. There's the whole story where they go into Manhattan for the first time to meet the Manhattan vampires, who are a little bit cooler than they are. But don't tell anyone that.
Hi.
All right.
Hi.
So nervous. I'm Scarlett's mom.
We're nervous.
Thank
We're nervous.
you. Thank you. How easy was it to write this script versus writing the original script, since you already had so much material?
Well, the original script, Taika and I worked together, and I wrote this one by myself, so this was a lot easier.
And faster. A lot faster.
Just joking. Just joking.
It is easier.
Well, this
sometimes.
is only half an hour long, so that makes it easier.
Sorry. So she took my question.
You give that back.
What?
Give it back to her.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything we should add to that question?
I did have something to add.
Your hat. I'm
Damn it,
so
all right.
concerned with that hat.
It's down there now. So I did have something to add to that question, which was not just the boroughs, but like knowing that, because you guys are from New Zealand, it was easy, I would assume, to write the movie set in New Zealand. So now that it's set in America and it's set in Staten Island, not just the vampires that would be living here, but the interactions with the kind of people who do live in Manhattan. How did you take, those kinds of people into consideration?
Well, I've lived in Manhattan a little.
And I live here. And one of our other writers, Tom Sharpley, and his wife is from Staten Island, and he's spent quite a bit of time out there.
So whenever we're shooting some of it in Toronto, and hopefully some of it here, but we always have to ask Tom, the guy whose wife is from Staten Island. Is this realistic? Staten Island.
Does this look like Highland Boulevard? Does this look like what the ferry looks like?
I've worked a little bit in Staten Island. That's part of, the decision to make it here because I'm a little familiar with it. I lived here for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm from Scotland.
We can see that.
Are you from?
I want to write and direct Scottish comedy, but it just never seems to do that great on a worldwide scale. What would you think it was about What We Do in the Shadows that reached that global success?
I can tell you that's easy. Is that we went really low budget, and and the deal was that whoever gave us the money was not allowed to read the script. So when people start messing with your script, that's when it stops. That's when it's really hard to make it funny, when people are questioning every little thing and decision that you do.
But I think also one of the things that makes the movie funny is you didn't try to back off from the New Zealand-ishness of it. So I would say you should make it as Scottish as possible, and it'll be funny to your friends.
And Taika knows more about this. He's made more New Zealand films. I've just made the one. You've made lots of films in New Zealand. How do you make them funny?
I've been trying to make dramas, but
Oh, that's true. Sorry, I watched them. I didn't
all my
realize.
dramatic ideas are just ridiculous.
You sneak jokes into a drama. That's what you've done.
As an American working with these New Zealand guys, I just find anything they say sounds funny. And I think that could be an advantage to you. I don't mean sounds funny, but it's interesting. We thought of the funniest people we knew, and we wrote parts for them.
Like when we were pitching the film around Hollywood, which was a disaster, Jemaine and I would go to these different offices in the studios, and they would say like, and they'd say, who's in it? So who's in the movie? We're, our friend Johnny. Oh, Johnny, okay, Johnny.
Yeah, we can ask Johnny.
Like,
we can ask Johnny.
Just Johnny from Auckland. He does like landscape gardening, and he's also does a bit of comedy as well. And he's a really funny guy.
He's the funniest guy we know, but yeah. Just try and find people who will help you, by bringing something to it.
Make your friends laugh.
Good luck.
I have a question for Jemaine.
Jemaine, you take this one.
I'm a huge Concords fan. Really admire your hilarious songwriting.
Thanks.
Wondering if we're gonna see any musical interludes in this series, and if not, if you wanted to just improv a ditty about vampires. I'd love to hear it.
We Matt Berry plays a lot of music, and he makes his own albums and stuff. So his character plays music quite often. The music he's playing on that organ, he's actually playing it, and he just made it up on the spot. And so he will play some music. I don't know if there'll be any songs as in a musical number. Perhaps season 7. That's when you start doing that.
Hi, I'm Tyler from Connecticut. I just had a question. In the film, we see a lot of other supernatural creatures in addition to vampires. Is the same going to be true for the TV show? And if so, what are some fun supernatural creatures you get to play with? As far as we know, the Colin Robinson, the energy vampire, is a new kind of supernatural creature, and we have one that's specific to this show coming up, and then probably some other ones you're more familiar with.
Jemaine really doesn't want to give anything away. But I think if you watch the show, you're going to be very satisfied.
Oh.
Good answer.
Hi, I'm Josh from Massachusetts. And I was wondering because of
Did you walk here?
I was wondering because one of my favorite parts about the movie and now the show is how a lot of the jokes are intertwined with the old artwork and drawings and stuff. And I was wondering what the process was about tying those two together and finding the art to mesh with the comic.
Well, in the film, at least, a lot of the drawings and a lot of the art were old etchings or old lithographs and stuff from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So we just Googled medieval torture,
And some of
weird
that's
monsters,
as
weird
disturbing
old
as
drawing.
anything you'll see. Some of those.
Yeah, some of those
drawings.
things. Yeah, like there was. Okay, yeah, well, yeah. I'm not gonna talk about. But and then sometimes like we would spend when we were editing the film, we would be up till 7 a.m. sometimes just drawing these, like trying to make these authentic-looking drawings. So a lot of the drawings that Jemaine and I worked on, just
In the
in a tiny little
I
office.
got really good at Photoshop for a little while, but we have a better budget on this, and we can have other people do it.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Bella. Nice to meet y'all. So this is not to do really with what we do in the shadows, but this is kind of silly, but in Eagle versus Shark, this probably
6 people saw that.
I was one of them. But one of my favorite lines ever is, "Oh, she's a lesbian. She's going to a lesbian party," and it's so simple, but I loved it. I wanted to ask, how'd you guys get involved with Matt Berry? Because obviously I'm a fan of y'all's work, and then all of his stuff, including like Snuffbox and all that stuff. So did he come to you guys? Did y'all go to him?
I had, we'd all seen him in stuff, and I was hoping, I'd written the part for him. He's only, it's always good when you, especially doing this and trying to think of how to make it different enough and the same enough was the challenge with making this. And I'd always pictured him as playing that part. And then I was in a movie with him, and I had to quietly say, I'm writing a part for you in a thing. And he was interested from the start. We're kind of friends now, and yeah. We cast the other, Natasha and Kayvan are both from the UK as well, and they auditioned. Matt auditioned, but we were hoping he would do it.
Nice. And as a Romanian, I really hope that you guys can incorporate some of our actual. That's the one thing we have is like vampires and gymnastics. So like.
It's because the gymnasts are actually vampires. But Taika and I, we
went to Romania. We went to Transylvania to a film festival there with Shadows, and yeah, it was great.
It's the birthplace of Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah. Well, we know.
Cool,
That's why we went.
Torture exhibits. All right.
So we
the torture's great in Romania. Yeah, they're the best.
We said everything over there, and we had a great Q&A there where they really got into it in Transylvania, and we were dressed as our characters and we came on. And firstly, it was in a medieval schoolroom, and when they turned
blacked out all the windows for us.
There's nothing like exit signs that light up, ruin the dark effect. And then when they turned the lights on and we're there and the vampires, we were only feet away from them, and they actually gasped like. But it was like a lot of the questions were how does it feel to be back home?
All right, we're going to have time for one more question, but before that, I want to let everybody know that for coming to this panel, FX is providing what we do in the shadows.
Everyone's getting cars.
Touchscreen gloves.
Okay. Touchscreen.
So that, if you're a vampire and you're having problems with a tablet, you can use those. I understand a few of you have already picked them up before you came in, so please don't take 2. We want to make sure everybody gets one. Take it away.
Okay, this is for Jemaine. So I've always been a fan of Flight of the Conchords, and I noticed you're doing a new special on HBO.
It was on last night.
Yeah.
You missed it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to catch it. So I was wondering, have you guys toured in the U.S., and if so, will you be willing to do another one coming up?
I'm not sure. Last tour we did here was 2 years ago, and we did a lot of touring this year in the UK, which is where we filmed the special. So we're having a bit of a rest at the moment.
You're not resting. You're very busy actually making this show.
This is a rest for me.
Okay, well, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we do in the shadows. Thank you for coming.
Everyone.
Thank you.